Hello everyone, I'm Ethys, and today I want to talk about the consequences for the world of Final Fantasy XIV of a certain theme, which turned out to, well, pretty much saturate patch 3.4, that of time magic and time travel. Now, this video is going to be highly speculative, but we're going to approach it as thoroughly as possible, make sure that all the ideas we entertain here are as sound as they can be. So, let's start with the mammoth Gigi, or Vivi, one of the most recent additions to the family of Hildebrand Mandeville. While some people insist that Hildebrand's stories exist in their own little bubble, excluded from the logic that pervades the rest of Eorzea, this is not entirely the case. Even the incidental summoning of Enkidu defers to the rules that guide the summoning of other icons and primals. So Gigi was created as Vivi by a Sharlayan archmagus named Quan, experimenting with the concept of time magic in desperation, apparently to recover his youth. Prematurely believing that he had failed, however, Quan cast the automaton aside sometime before the Sharlayan Exodus. It is since then that we have observed the mammoth having at least some capacity for temporal manipulation, and even if the Sharlayans remain wholly ignorant of this discovery for now, it seems that the principle is sound and that the wielding of time magic is now canonical within the Final Fantasy XIV universe. Secondly, and probably more obviously, we have the climax of Alexander, in which the primal wields a number of temporal magics and can even personally travel with its entire cabal of passengers back and forward through time. At its core, it continually runs a simulation that could predict every possible future with every possible variable and every possible intervention it could personally make before determining that the course of history was best left not in Alexander's hands, but in those of the Warrior of Light. Now, of course, the act of time travel consumes an unimaginable quantity of ether. This is the threat that Alexander has appeared to pose from the beginning, and the reason that it ultimately resigns to its own deactivation. The only time it exercised its power was not to change history, but to preserve it, sending a clockwork Coel kitten as an emissary to gently nudge events back on course. So some might believe that the manipulation of time is impossible for any entity but Alexander, but then we have the apparent success of Sharlayan experiments into this field with the precedent of Gigi, and these more mundane and localized uses of time magic evidently do not consume ether on anywhere near the scale of Alexander. Furthermore, although the ether required for persistently traveling through and reorchestrating history's events is so severe as to risk calamity, even the perfect machine of Alexander calculates that it is an acceptable and far lesser risk to throw a single actor back through time to prevent other parties from altering its natural course. Now, the most obvious operable consequence of all this is that with the established existence and feasibility of time magics in Final Fantasy XIV, the foundations have been laid for the canonical establishment of the time mage job. Whether, when, or how these skills will be made accessible to players remains to be seen, but I have little doubt that we will be hearing more about the study and use of time magic by characters in Eorzea in the not-so-distant future. Now, I'm sure that's an exciting prospect for a lot of people, but there is another consequence I would like to explore, which is bound to be a little more controversial. Whenever new magics and technologies are discovered, or old ones uncovered, they have been invariably sought by antagonistic parties hoping to seize them for their own ends. As black magic has returned to the realm, so too have cults that seek to abuse it. The same is true of the Allegan Summoner tradition, and perhaps most notably, the neurolinking technology that has so deeply fascinated the Garlean Empire as a means to bring primals permanently to heal. To think that it is only Quick Think's All Thoughts to whom it would occur to master time magics for his own nefarious ends would be rather naive. And so it is that I can imagine, in some future expansion, some function very much like Alexander's Shanoa being performed by the Warrior of Light. To be more specific, I can imagine future antagonists planning not only to wield time magics, but to travel backwards in time in order to manipulate events at various points in Eorzea's history. We know that enigmatic heroes possessing the Echo and the Blessing of Light have appeared at various points throughout history. particularly on the cusp of umbral calamities, that they might save the world from greater annihilation and its people from complete extinction, it seems wholly conceivable to me that these heroes are all one and the same. The Warrior of Light in our character's future, making emergency voyages back in time to preserve the history of the realm. There is, of course, a precedent set by the reasonably common theme of time travel throughout the Final Fantasy franchise, and some of the richest pieces of Eorzea's story and lore are in its distant past. The opportunity to see and participate firsthand in such dramatic set pieces as the climax of the War of the Magi or the Fall of Alleg would be, in my opinion, a compelling direction for the narrative to take, even if it's unlikely to happen anytime soon with so many pressing issues in our present time. The Alexander story has shown us that Final Fantasy XIV can handle stories about time travel without making a mess of the canon or lore, and the potential to explore both the breadth of Heidelin's geography and its history directly should be something very exciting for us to look forward to. Now, I do want to make it clear that there's nothing really in the game at the moment to indicate that this is a direction being taken or even being seriously considered. The only point I want to make by discussing this right now is that there is no reason for it not to happen. It's canonically sound, the foundation and precedents have already been set for time magic and time travel, so why not? I would, of course, love to know what you all think, so feel free to discuss it below. Maybe you love the idea of a time-traveling Warrior of Light fighting to preserve history. Maybe you think it's stupid. I obviously think it has a lot of potential, and if handled right could make a very compelling couple of chapters to the narrative of Final Fantasy XIV. So thank you all for indulging my speculative rambling and my narrative wish list. Like and subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of bullshit and other Final Fantasy XIV lore discussions. But until next time, I'm Ethys. Thanks for watching.